what would that look like for somebody who's never done this before? And what would be the instant gratification out of it and the long-term view?
Well, I think for anyone that's thinking of even having a trust, usually it's because, let's say you have a business or you have even a W-2 job where you're making a substantial amount of money and you think you have to pay a lot of taxes on that money. And you don't want to maybe have to do that. There are ways to invest that money, and that's how you then begin to build your estate. You get to have assets to put into this trust. So you can be investing in property. You can be investing in your business. You can be putting money in life insurance. You could be putting money in your IRAs. These are all assets that can be made part of the trust.
Well, welcome back to our latest episode of Remember You. Expect conversations to open your mind, nourish your body, and elevate your soul. Come curious, leave different. Welcome back to you. Welcome home. Remember You.
I love that.
That's nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay, wait, do you guys want to actually just start with like a couple deep breaths
let's do the
together
breath work.
so we can
Let's
like
do that.
kind of lock in a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. So like I said before, we'll do a little diaphragmatic breathing. So that's when you inhale, your stomach is expanding. So we'll just do in through the mouth, out through the mouth. Let's just do 5 breaths together. Ready?
The mouth.
Depth over speed. Dropping your shoulders. Let it all go. Last 2. Last one.
Now I want to go to sleep.
I feel relaxed, so that's good.
Much better. All right, well, you could take a nap under the table. It's fine. Michelle's got a lot to say today.
Yes, she does. All right, Michelle, you're on the hot seat today.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about you, your background and your company. And I've got lots of awesome questions for you, so we can't wait to learn more about wealth here.
Okay, I guess I've been an attorney for 17 years, started in 2007, went to law school in Michigan. When I started, before I even started, I was in an estate planning clinic. So I was doing wills for the elderly. So that's what it was thought of as, something for the elderly, and it was just wills. But then when I got out of law school, I ended up doing criminal defense. I had a partner. He was in his 60s. He had a lot of experience with criminal defense, so we were doing a lot of felony trials and getting not guilties and growing our practice that way. Let's see. And so we were practicing together for, I don't know, at least 15, 16 years. But he had an illness. And because he had an illness, I guess his health started to deteriorate during the coronavirus time. A little before that, and so I was seeing that. I was seeing attorneys that were older, continuing to practice in the courtroom, getting ill, and I didn't see them retiring. Some having heart attacks. And so I didn't understand why they couldn't retire or why they weren't doing things to retire. So anyways, when my partner passed, I started thinking about practicing in the area I was in and who I was helping, and then the environment I was in, because it's not receptive to help criminal defendants in that environment. And I was enjoying it with my partner, but with him not there, anymore. I didn't see it the same way. And then to see what happened when he passed, and then people not understanding how quickly he could end up in hospice and just pass. I didn't know. He didn't even expect what was happening to him to happen to him. And not being prepared, maybe seeing death in my husband's family, my own family, and the way passing on assets was handled, thinking that things would just happen without even doing anything about it, not doing a will, not doing a trust, not having it in writing was interesting to me. Having relatives kind of try to go for assets when, the person that should be deciding it is the person that has the asset. Mm-hmm. They should be deciding, not someone that thinks they're entitled to it. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that when you don't have a will or you don't have a trust that's really clear, you can end up in probate court. That's where people start fighting for the assets. So thinking about all these things and what I wanted to do with my life and my health, because I knew it wasn't really good, I decided to switch and transition from criminal defense to estate planning. So, and I thought, that's how I'm going to do it. I then searched for a mentor. So I had a mentor with criminal defense, so I got a mentor with estate planning, but I also knew there was a lot I was going to be having to do. Mm-hmm. So because I had to do a lot, I needed a coach. I needed people to advise me, so I hired those people. And then even Justin became one of those people because I knew I wasn't healthy. I wasn't eating healthy. When I was a criminal defense attorney, you're going and eating and drinking and eating dessert and doing whatever you want and then doing trials and you're not healthy. And I think that's part of a practice like that. I kept telling my partner, it's stressful. Even though we think we're having fun, this is still a stressful situation that we're putting our bodies through. So we got to, think about that and take care of ourselves. So thinking about all those things, I think of estate planning the same way. If people are not thinking about their financial well-being or trying to take steps to take care of that, it affects their life and their profession and how they can handle their job, especially stressful ones. Mm-hmm. And then when you don't have people that you can count on, or you feel like you don't have someone you can count on, and it's worse. So that's why I did the transition. And so I created what was first Bolingbrook Promenade Estate Planning, because I'm from Bolingbrook. And then as I was networking and trying to explain estate planning to people, I thought people were not getting that it's not death planning, it's wealth planning. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I changed the name to Heritage Wealth Solutions, because I want people to have the mindset of this is about building wealth. You have to take steps, just like in your health, in your building of your wealth, there are certain things that you can be doing. You have your retirement accounts, you have assets like your home, investments, your own business. You can be investing in life insurance. All of these things create what is an estate. So then you can pass it down to your loved ones. You could use it to protect yourself while you're aging, because people age and they don't think about the illnesses they're going to have to deal with as they age and why they may need to retire at 65 because of their poor health. And they need that ability, so they need all these strategies in place to prepare for that. Not a lot of people do it. Not a lot of people think of that. And so I think it's important they know they can be planning for this and then be prepared for when they do talk to someone that can help them. They're ready.
That's an amazing business name, by the way.
Thanks.
Can you say it again? And then also, do you have a website?
Heritage Wealth Solutions. And the website's heritagewealthsolutions.net.
So this is great. I have a few questions for you to get started. Mm-hmm. So if someone listening today has no assets whatsoever, or they at least don't think they do, just a vision for what they want their life to be, what's the most powerful trust or entity structure they could begin building to future-proof that vision?
I think first they have to have the mindset that that's what they want to do, and then start searching out someone like me. I created a legacy builder blueprint. So I have something that shows you all the different things you can be doing to be ready to create. Let's say, I think the biggest thing is a trust for anyone. That's the easiest way to pass down your assets, have rules for how they get passed down, and avoid probate court.
And so for some of us who maybe don't understand what a trust is, there's two different kinds of trusts, and then there's wills, right? There's also a thing called a pour-over will. Can you enlighten us on what each one is and the function that it serves?
Yeah, so there are several ways to structure a trust, but a trust is it's like a legal contract, and why financial institutions will honor it, and why you don't end up in probate court when you have one if you make sure that your assets are made part of the trust. So the two types that are mostly talked about are the revocable and then the irrevocable trust. And then when you talk about pour over will, like some people just have a will because they don't even do a trust. But the pour over will has to do with you got a trust done, but sometimes people don't fund their trust is the term properly. That means retitle the assets. They don't do that properly. So to catch these things is the pour over will. So anything that's not made part of that trust you created, then you can go to probate court and tell the judge, well, I meant to put it in the trust.
Got it.
There's my pour over will stating that if something gets missed, it should have gone in there.
I have kind of a thought and perspective to ask you on. So in my world, you got to give like an immediate, instantaneous, like instant gratification result to get people in and like have them stick with it to then go for the long haul. And I think the same goes in wealth creation too.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some things with what we're talking about here with establishing a trust and an estate, and for the short term and long term, like what would that look like for somebody who's never done this before, and what would be the instant gratification out of it and the long term view?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for anyone that's thinking of even having a trust, usually it's because let's say you have a business, or you have even a W-2 job where you're making a substantial amount of money and you think you have to pay a lot of taxes on that money, and you don't want to maybe have to do that. There are ways to invest that money, and that's how you then begin to build your estate. Mm-hmm. You get to have assets to put into this trust. So you can be investing in property. You can be investing in your business. You can be putting money in life insurance. You could be putting money in your IRAs. These are all assets that can be made part of the trust. So that's a way to see that you'll get tax deductions investing in property.
Can I ask a question as an entrepreneur? Let's start there. I have always been taught that every amount of money that comes in, you should have expenses. So what I hear you saying is and I do that too, obviously, everybody knows this. You don't want to pay as much tax, right? So you find, the most expensive car to lease, or you buy a new car every 2 years or whatever. Now you're saying there's other opportunities out there.
Yeah.
Instead of going and spending all that money, maybe you should invest it.
Yeah. So there's so many different ways you can be doing that, and you may have to use all of them depending on how much money you're bringing in. So you don't want to wait till, April 1st to start thinking about investing, because it's too late.
Yep.
Because you're going to have to pay taxes on all that money you made over the year. So you start thinking of it as soon as you're making the money. You be strategic about how you're going to be spending that money and on what, because you have to do it. If you just 4 months before the end of the year, you have to do it quickly. Mm-hmm. If you know you're making that money over the time, some people still don't even know about getting the certain car or investing in their business. It's like you need help in your business, then pay for the person that's going to help you. And that's a deduction. Okay. So use that so you don't stress yourself out, running your business.
Yep.
So that's one way. Investing in property, there's so many rules in the tax code that helps you write off all these investments in property. That's why it's huge with Trump and Kiyosaki, because that's the biggest way.
Yeah.
I got it. Kind of a scenario here because we're coming from all different kind of walks of life. Like I am somebody who's, I'm working in the business and on the business, and it's also my job, right? So I'm not in that position where, and I'll just say this, just we can edit this out, but like I think it's important to like show where you're at, like tell your story because it's interesting to hear from that perspective, from my perspective. And Sishay as well, right?
Totally.
And your perspective as well. Because like it's easy to look at physical and go, okay, in health, he's got it going or whatever it may be. But like the finances, like you talk about, I think the biggest thing you said in the warm up here was like, what would be that one thing, which we can get into now? Like that question about what's one thing that would actually you could give anybody who's just getting started is talk about wealth, talk about finances.
Yeah, I think families especially, because the whole concept of a trust and why it's termed a trust is you really have to trust the people around you, your family, your friends. If you're going to create a trust and you want to appoint trustees that are not yourself, so you could say, I don't control this, you want to trust them to do what's right for you, your family, all of that, and then have the rules. But that's the biggest thing is no one's talking about money in families except
and also in school and in anything.
Yeah.
You're taught your finances should be kept secret. Nobody should know how much money you're making. Your kids shouldn't know what the house costs.
To me. Like it's so wild.
So my husband, who is my kid's stepdad, he came to the table with, we don't talk about finances. I'm very open with my kids. So they always knew how much money I made, how much things cost.
Yeah.
And he's like, why are you telling them that? To me, that's the one way that you start to open their mind to feel safe around money.
Yeah.
And what is it and what do things cost and what's the value of money? So how do you suggest people like my spouse start to have a different mindset around money and start to talk about it? What's the easiest first step?
I think in terms of knowing that you want to be protected as you age, and you want to trust your children to know how to deal with money, then you need to start educating them on how money works, how you earn it, how you spend it, your money ideals or financial knowledge. Because most people that do the estate planning, they have a lot of assets. So they have a lot of knowledge about investing, growing money. And if they don't share that with the people that are going to inherit that,
right,
then that's how it just disappears.
Yep.
Because most people will inherit a house and not see the ability to grow that money.
So that's a good one. Let's start there because most of our listeners, the number one thing they're striving for is to have a house. Okay, when you have a trust and you have your house, most people don't own their house outright. They have a mortgage. Right. Do you put the house into the trust even though you have a mortgage on it?
Yes, and that's what the cool thing about doing that is when you put the house in the trust and you've been paying so much over time, you don't lose that when you pass.
Right.
You pass it down and the person that inherits can just take over the mortgage payment. No refinance, no nothing. They take over.
Got it. And what would you say? Okay, so
it's like really setting people up to like transition easily into like living that way.
Go ahead, finish your point.
And so at some point, say I pay that mortgage off and it's in the trust.
Yeah.
At the point that I'm talking to my family about it, do they then understand that they can rent it out, use it as trust property,
That's why
start to build that income?
That's why there should be discussions, because most people will see that as, okay, I inherited it, let's sell it.
And split the profit.
Yeah, and they don't see that's just not the way to do it.
Yep.
And if they had maybe the person that created all these assets or accumulated all these assets explaining why that's a bad idea, they wouldn't do that.
Yes.
But most people don't have that information. The person that got all the assets is the only one with the knowledge, and then they're gone. And then the people that inherit just don't know how to keep it going.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Little golden nugget there.
there's like a centralized theme here that I think we can all agree upon is like what's often popular is untrue. So like entrepreneurship, finances, health, marketing, all these things are just completely, you have to go out on your own to figure this out. And here, like hire coaches and mentors who have actually succeeded at the level that you want to achieve. So an idea came to mind that I'm interested in hearing your take on it, because I don't own a house, right? I'm renting,
Okay.
but I do own my car.
Yeah.
So many would say that's a liability, and you get what I mean? Like
Yeah, I see
if
what you're
you
saying.
own something, like I own stock, I own crypto, I own, those are like assets that I hold.
Okay.
So from a trust perspective, like I understand the concept of own nothing but benefit from all.
Yeah.
Which we can get into.
Or own nothing, control everything.
Or own, yes, exactly. So
Own nothing, control nothing, benefit from it.
So that was because I say that because I heard you over talking about that
Yeah.
earlier. But like, so from my perspective of getting into a trust, setting that up, I understand the mindset benefit. It's like just start somewhere, just get it set up, start
because-
establishing something. What would that look like?
Even with you having, let's say, stocks, crypto, whatever, that's still an asset.
Business as well,
And
right?
people don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even your business, you can be putting it in a trust. Like
Yes.
especially a business, you assign the interest to the trust. So if you pass, get control of your bank accounts, because right now it would just be usually just your name. Anyone,
a business, as traditional business checking, right?
Yeah.
Still under my name.
right? And
Yeah.
banks will honor an assignment of your business interests in those accounts to the trust if you were to pass and someone else needs to take over and you name who. So, and you can't name a minor child. So you need people you trust. So you still got to realize you have assets, even if it's not a house or life insurance or whatever.
And would you say, like in Justin's situation, let's go back to the car. Does the car go in the trust?
Usually vehicles, no, but those are, there is a form that goes with the trust document that you can list it there. But usually it's easy to transfer like a vehicle. And because in a vehicle you can have a car accident, usually they don't say make it part of the trust. But that's complicated
another-
stuff. So you have
Yeah.
to
Another path.
just talk to your.
So, but if I owned nothing, like if the car was the only thing I owned
Yeah.
and I wanted to start a trust, can I start a trust with just a vision, or would I put my car in there so I have something?
Good question.
Well, I wouldn't start a trust for a car.
Okay.
Is the first thing, unless it's like a Ferrari or something. And then I could see that doesn't really get driven.
It's like a
lot.
collectible.
Yeah, there's a
Liability,
different, there's
That's
an
not a
actual asset. Yeah. Yep.
usually. So I wouldn't start a trust for that. But you have to still consider you have all these other assets. How easy is it for your family to get a hold of, let's say, crypto, life insurance? You need to make it easy because you don't want them to have to go to probate court and then deplete the amount in there. That's the point. You don't want to deplete the asset just because they had to go to probate court and get a court order to get access. And if you have, let's say, money to creditors, they get
Access
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to pick on Justin here a little, sorry.
Yeah.
So as Justin's building his business, he's working in it. That's his job. That's what so his most best first step would be to put his business into the trust.
Yeah. Assign the interest of that business to the trust. Yeah. And so then you can be, why I say revocable, your really the trustee from the first day. You're always controlling that. You don't have to change anything. It's all your, EIN or social security number paying the taxes. And then you can appoint other people to take over if anything were to happen to you.
Got it.
Because anything could happen to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. So walk me through.
Wait, can I
go
ask
ahead.
one question that just piggybacks off of that? So this is so interesting because I have a lot of moving parts right now as I'm transitioning full-time to my hypnotherapy business.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one marketing contract that is a W-2, which is what we were talking about. And I want to keep that as like it's a good setup.
Yeah.
That would be something that I could kick off the trust with.
So are you saying you have your own business?
It's yes. Well, like the new, yes. But I'm saying while I'm building that business, I have other streams of revenue coming in, and one of those is a contracted role with a company that I do marketing work for,
Okay.
and that's technically a 1099.
Okay.
Is that the type of example that you could put to like from the tax break perspective?
And that's what you have to, I'm not sure what you're asking, if you're wanting to assign your like business interest to a trust or what else?
Because you had said originally.
No, let me. So there's different types of employment. Okay. There's a W-2 employee who gets taxes taken out of their paycheck, and the employer pays taxes and the employee pays taxes and then they get their take-home pay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one way to make money. Then there's a 1099. Some people work on a 1099 basis and they use their social security number, and they're getting straight income, and there's no taxes until they file their taxes at the end of the year. And then there is you're a business owner and you have an EIN number that you've registered with the state and the federal government. Usually it's the state, I think, that you then pay yourself, usually a W-2 through that company, but you can also bring revenue into that company as however you set it up from a tax perspective, right?
So I think what then you're getting at is having like a business succession plan, because let's say you have a person that's hiring you.
No, I think it's lower than
even
that.
smaller.
It's even more entry level. What she's asking is if she's a 1099 employee or contractor, contractor, and she's bringing in income, can she set a business trust up privately and run that income through that trust?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know about that, because I'm just thinking of assets being put into a trust, but trying to run a business through a trust is not something that I deal with.
Okay.
So
Carry on then. Keep going.
Yeah.
All right. That's what you were asking.
Yeah. Well, so we had talked about previously setting up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess there's different ways to pass on assets and then pass it on to charity and do all these kinds of things. And maybe there are people talking about running a business. And I think I was talking to Justin about this the other day. There are different people out there on the internet talking about certain things and certain ways you can set up trusts to not pay taxes. And I don't think they're so correct about the way they're saying to set it up.
Got it.
Because a lot of this is about government wants to make sure they're getting paid any taxes that they're owed.
Right.
But they do set up rules in the tax code that allow you to take tax deductions or not pay taxes on certain monies, because there are certain amounts that certain people are never going to meet to have to pay taxes on.
Perfect. So when I'm a minor, like a very simple one, right, is I have a child. He's under 18. He goes and gets a job. He has to meet a certain threshold to start paying taxes, right? Like $7,000 or something. And that's set up to protect them, right?
Right. So something, I don't know if it's you can gift at this point, 19,000. At one point, it was like 15,000. So there's certain amounts that people can make and not pay taxes on. Let's say in Illinois, anything above 4 million gets taxed 40%. Anything like federally, I think it's 13.99 million at this point, gets taxed federally 40%.
Yep.
Okay. Couples, it doubles. But
And
then
that's at the time of death, though, right?
right.
Okay.
And then there's ways you can structure certain trusts. Why I say own nothing, control nothing, but benefit. And there are restrictions. It's HEMS, but you can benefit from it. And that's how you say, I don't really own these assets.
Okay, so then that brings me to some of my more basic questions for you. When I'm setting up a trust with you and you have your blueprint ready, I'm sure you have lots of questions for us, but like as a client, right?
Yeah.
When I go to actually just even fundamentally understand what a trust is, there's certain jobs and responsibilities within the trust. So walk me through what those responsibilities are. Like the first one would be what we would call a grantor or creator of the trust. Who is that person and what's their part in your blueprint?
Okay, so usually the person that's coming in for the consultation, I give them an intake form. It's a long intake form because you're going to be telling me all your assets and who you want to benefit. They should also be telling me who they want to be appoint as trustees.
Okay, wait, don't talk about trustees yet.
Okay.
So we got the grantor, that's me, the creator.
Right.
And I am coming in with my assets and I'm going to create the blueprint for my generational wealth.
You're going to tell me what you have as your assets. Because I have the blueprint of what I think people should be doing.
So I don't have to know. I just have to know I have a house,
right?
And I have this cryptocurrency, and I have this business.
Yes, and you got to tell me all that you have.
Okay.
And then when you come into the meeting, then we can discuss. Well, who do you want to benefit from this, and how? How, like if you have kids, you have 2 kids, 50% each. But who are the trustees that are going to handle?
All right. I think a lot of people get confused with the trustees.
Okay.
So I can get behind, I'm the grantor, I'm the creator, I'm your client, I'm working with you. Now, the trustees, what is their purpose and why are they there?
To carry out the rules of the trust. So see, like there's assets and all these assets are everywhere, all over the place. They have to make sure that all the assets come together and they start using those assets for the benefit of whoever is named as the beneficiaries. Okay?
It's so simple, yet so misunderstood.
I want to kind of bring this in to like a personal, let's say. So I'm a business owner. I am anticipating paying taxes, right? So I am doing this game of everything is an expense in some way, shape, or form because it is business related.
Yeah.
And so going through that, there's all these intricacies of how to intertwine all that. The business being an asset, something that can go within the trust, that seems like a step one anybody can take advantage of, whether you're an employee, contractor, business owner, you could get into that. Yes. The benefit thereof is what's the benefit, going back to that instant gratification, like what's the benefit of doing that now? I understand that this is going to set up something to where my son or family can take over if something were to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And then it also, when? And
clean up.
Yeah, because people
I don't know. I go different places with that.
We just don't know when.
We're downloading my consciousness right now, so I will be here.
You will control nothing, though.
That's it, though. That's really it. So that goes into the other aspect. So the instant gratification is I am liable for nothing, in a sense, is what I understand a trust to be, where it separates you from any personal liability to anything that would happen financially or otherwise. Like
people are confused.
Yes, so I'd like to clear that up.
So,
and then also just to segue this, just like what is, because I'm thinking like I know this is me, and I know this is a lot of people who are like, okay, I see it down the line, but what's the big deal now? Like, why should I do this now?
Yeah.
And it's very, like, if you can answer that and then pull it into what we just talked about.
Well, first, I think there's a lot of professionals involved in asset protection and asset passing down to beneficiaries, heirs. So you need to consider what you're trying to do is based on what professionals are you going to talk to and what attorneys you're going to talk to. So there's like a business attorney, why people should be creating LLCs and putting their business and make the LLC that business. So then it's a limited liability company. So when someone sues you, they're limited to that company. Like if someone creates a lot of companies, so they don't have access to all these other companies, and why people then assign the interest of that company to a trust. And then if you make it irrevocable, that's different because of how a court will say, okay, pay out this settlement if something were to happen. And why you get advised to say cap that company at $1 million or $2 million in insurance.
With your general liability insurance.
Yes, so that you can pay out on a case if you had to, if you were sued, and they're limited there. And they don't come after any other assets you may have, and you put assets in other LLCs. So that's a way to limit liability. But then when you want to put it in a trust, a trust doesn't become irrevocable till after you pass, unless you make it irrevocable during your life.
Yeah.
So you can go through.
You can do that.
You can do that while you're.
Yeah.
And
But
so the
then-
benefit of
But then you need
limitation.
trustees, right? So then you need trustees that are not you to start controlling that asset. So that, like, let's say you get sued, then you could say, I don't have control of how this gets dispersed.
Could you make a company or entity to pass those on? You get what I mean? Like, so you got a company, but then the trustee is a company as well.
A trustee
The
has to
trust-
be a man or a woman.
Yeah, it's a person. The trust.
I
it's
love
sig-
that question.
It signifies that you cannot create an EIN and pass and create.
You can create an EI. Sorry, I know too much about this. You answer.
So, all right. So you get what I mean? So if I'm Justin Reich with my social security number and going into developing an irrevocable trust that has the trustee as an EIN that I established.
But the trustee is a person. So the EIN is just the tax ID that you use when you're paying taxes in that business.
Okay.
And so then the trustee, if you want to make it irrevocable and it's not you and you don't have control. So then if, let's say it's sued, a company's sued, then the judge gets to say how things get paid out. But if you're not in control, it's whatever the trustee says, really. You see?
It's protected.
So-
And here's that you can have an irrevocable trust that has an EIN number because you're going to need a bank account
Yes.
to pay out your beneficiaries. It gets complicated, which is why you need somebody like Michelle to help you through it.
Yeah. So,
so-
I guess like go ahead, please.
What was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought. But the whole thing is there's all these rules. Like you can be going to, let's say, Wyoming. You set up your business there. They're more business friendly. So they have rules to protect business owners. So when you're trying to look for protection, that's why people go and do things like that.
So I guess back to the scenario of, okay, who I am, what I have, what I'm doing, right? One of my purposes is to reduce liability and reduce taxes.
Yeah.
Like, and you and I have talked about that a lot, and you're like, yeah, it does that, right? So me going through the legwork and the extra work to set this up, what does that look like from a standpoint of somebody, an individual business owner who is doing his own finances, who is doing his own, work essentially to run all aspects of the business, to then say, hey, you should set up a trust because I have an LLC, but you should set up a trust so that it does cover your family and does cover the long run.
Yeah.
But in terms of the benefit of the business and the taxes and finance, like how does it impact the finances?
So it is asset protection. So it is a easy way to limit paying out of any kind of money in probate court that would deplete your assets so that you can pass something down. If you don't care about all the hard work you did all these years to build your practice or build your business and then have the ability to pass down, because most people don't have the wealth of, let's say, the Kennedys or the Rockefellers. And we're dealing with property, life insurance, retirement accounts, our business accounts. As soon as you end up in probate court, if you're not doing these estate planning documents, they're going to get depleted. There's all these costs associated besides just hiring an attorney. There's costs with the probate court. There's costs with creditors. So to minimize that and have something left to pass down is why people should be doing it.
And it goes back to your original point of talking to your beneficiaries as the creator of the trust and having them understand what you're doing so that they understand how to continue with creating generational wealth.
Right. Because the family has to have the concept in their brain that this is what we're doing here to work together.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is you want instant gratification. It's not there. There is an instant gratification with creating this that Michelle can go through with her clients individually, but it's understanding that this is a long-term, multiple generation way of preserving wealth. Why do we think the Rockefellers are so powerful?
Right.
They protected everything that they had through different trusts.
And I'm saying, like, when you corrected me when you're going to, you're thinking long term, whereas I'm not thinking
you're
right.
that aspect of things where it's like, you got to think down the line. And it's easy for me to kick that can down the road.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to just kick it down and just go, okay, I'll approach it later. So that's where I'm approaching, like, authentically. Like, I need to establish a long-term plan.
Yeah.
And because because I think day to day, month to month, year to year,
and then you age.
And then you age.
Get in your 60s and you can't work the way you used to work. And no one's thinking of that. So you need to have a plan. You need to be thinking of all the ways you can build this.
And even for young listeners that are thinking like, well, this is totally irrelevant for me because I'm 18, 20, 25, even 30, and I don't have any of this stuff. Well, they can start to think about it even in a situation of marriage. So, most young people are thinking like, I want to get married someday and all this great stuff, right? Well, a trust is a great way to sit down with your significant other, whoever that person is, and instead of talking about let's get married and have a kid and a white picket fence, you start looking at how do we create generational wealth together. That's step number one. If you and that person don't agree on how that money is going to come together, then you shouldn't be thinking about getting married. You should be thinking about how are we coming together and are we ready to enter into a union, whether it's a true union as we know marriage or a trust union, where we create a trust together. And guess what? If you come on hard times and want to split up, splitting that irrevocable trust is impossible. So you better be ready to join your lives together.
Definitely. Wow. That's interesting to think of that, to think of people starting off that way instead of just thinking of spending money and not thinking of the future, because most people are that way. And then the future comes, like even catastrophic accidents, you can be debilitated. You can't take care of yourself and you may have assets that can take care of you and you don't even think of putting it in a trust or having powers of attorney set up so that you can appoint people you trust. Because sometimes people get put with, like, let's say a mother that wouldn't take care of them the same way that maybe a friend would.
Right.
Knows what they like, knows what they would do to try and heal themselves. A lot of that happens to people.
Oh, that just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's right. And having that documented and there is super important. And these questions, if you're thinking like I'm young and maybe I'm like thinking about getting married or whatever, going to Michelle, working through some of these questions that she's going to ask and figuring out how do you architect the blueprint of your life together as a young couple is really important.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you're setting the vision for what your future is, and that's your point.
Right.
Is like
people have to
start
thinking
now
about it.
to put the North Star so that, because I'm thinking like the vision that comes to mind is like you're on the beach having daiquiris and enjoying life, right? Me, I'm treading water trying to get to the point where I can catch, it's like, what's the when you go out, they say don't go into the ocean because it'll pull you out. What's that called?
The current.
High tide?
It's not, Shay, do you know this?
The undercurrent.
Yeah, it's like the undertow. It pulls you out. Like you get pulled out of the undertow, and then you got to just let it go. And then you go parallel, and then you find a place where you can actually swim back to the beach. So I'm getting there to swimming back to the beach. And I have to have a vision though.
Yeah.
And you got to set this up. Right.
All of us had to have a vision for our life, right? What we wanted to do. And it's the same thing.
No.
And none of us are doing it. And this is the most important thing, because how are we going to take care of ourselves when we age? And then how are we going to pass on wealth? We did all this hard work, and then what? It's gone.
Well, I always say you can't die with your money.
Yeah.
And so protect it for the people that you love.
And for yourself.
You're setting up a financial garden that'll be much more prosperous. And then to your point, like having conversations with your kids to where they know how to handle it. Because I come from the opposite, where
Me too.
my parents, we fumbled our estate, what my great grandfather built, and looking at that, and I'm not putting anything on my parents. It's just that I had to learn this stuff myself, and then you're out there to fend for yourself, trying to figure out how to do this.
Well, and you're not taught any of this.
No, and it's not in school.
No.
It goes back to that.
We could be the change. We can be interested in how do we protect this? How do we pass it on? What do we got to do?
So the interesting thing, I find like power and identity, right? So how many of us in here have a trust? And you can raise your hand, right? But I can look at that, go, and I'm like, I want to be a part of that because I respect where you two are at, right? And I look at that and go, okay, that's an identity shift that makes you pay attention to things that are always there.
Yeah.
The information and the conversations are always there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what you're receptive to. And I know how you think is establish a trust, because it'll open up portals and ways of thinking that you haven't been receptive to before.
I think it's actually really intimidating, to be totally honest.
It is.
Like, I mean,
It is.
I love the concept of like using the blueprint, because I have like major vision for my life, and like things are coming to fruition. It's been a slog, like the entrepreneurial journey. And I'm starting to be at the place and time in my life where it's like now I'm getting like super serious about all of my financial strategy.
Yeah.
And because now I have skill sets that I can like monetize and in like much bigger ways. And so my thought is kind of going to what you were saying is like using it as this blueprint as a North Star to then like reverse engineer the steps of like getting to it. Is that like part of what you do with people, or is it like?
That's what I see I need to be doing with people, because most people don't think they're ready for an estate plan. And
It's
I could
intimidating.
say, well, this is what you need for it. So like some people have it and they still don't do it. But if they knew.
Such a true statement.
I think that you can speak to a lot of people.
Or can you like expand on that?
There's a lot of
Well,
people who have it established, but not properly.
Oh, there's that, right. So if they have the trust and they don't fund it correctly, because a lot of attorneys will draft the trust, will sign it all, and they take it home. People take it home and think that's all they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the funding of the trust term is retitling assets retitle the house, retitle all your accounts, make sure that the beneficiaries for certain assets are named correctly.
And I'll give you an example, real life example on this one. So we put together a trust and I called Fidelity and told them I want all my bank accounts switched over to this trust. They make it impossible.
Right. And then it's not done a lot.
Because
They
then it
don't
falls
know.
through the cracks because you
Because
don't
you're
know
like,
how
I don't want to deal with this. And you're like, I don't know what they're asking me. Like I already paid my attorney. Like he's done. Do I want to go pay him another, couple $1,000 to deal with this?
Right.
And you just kind of sit there thinking, well, if I die, it'll sit over on the pour over trust and it'll go over because I cannot deal with one more call with the customer service person who doesn't understand why I'm putting this IRA into a trust.
Right. And so that's why you can hire an attorney and pay the attorney to do all that and deal with them and explain I'd say I'll have a meeting with you to explain what we're doing and then we'll get it done. And then of course the client just has to tell them, yes, do whatever my attorney just told you to do. so it can be that easy if you just pay, but
that adds so much color to why this gets so blocked up for people because of not having like even just the financial like language to even like move through these different steps of the process. And that's the value of like.
That is a great point because we aren't talking about money. We don't even, Christina doesn't even really, she's saying like most people don't even understand, like I need to call my Fidelity or my person who, because they don't even understand the words that we're using. And it's like you just feel lost in a sea of nonsense because the fundamentals aren't being taught.
Right.
Well, it goes back to, I'm just thinking, I like to think of things from like macro and then like zoom in.
Yeah.
And so like you started the podcast talking about how from a societal perspective, we're not talking about even from the beginning of any education within like our schools. We are societally conditioned to not have these conversations with our family and our kids. It's very hush hush. That's how I grew up. It was like, that is like so inappropriate, to talk about anything like that.
Or never ask anybody how much money they make.
Exactly.
It's
Which
so rude.
I'm so totally the opposite of that now because I think especially as like young professionals, it's really good to see like where everybody's at. So you should know what you're striving for and different things like that. But
well, and I have to interrupt you for 1 second and digress, but it is, so my background's recruiting and HR, right? So all through my career, even when you're recruiting somebody, they're told not to ask them how much money they're making, just wait till the offer, all this stuff. And I've seen, my whole thing was recruiting was always broken from it. I am not a lover of the government, but one thing that the government did recently that has changed the way that recruiting is done is had companies put salary ranges on their job advertisements. It has opened up the ability for recruiters not to ask how much money you're making, but to ask what range you're in. Is this the right range? Be more open. And then guess what? You're creating more openness in your workplace to talk about like, what level do I need to be at? What am I making? This needs to be even a greater project for people to work on so that we have more visibility to what people can do with their money and what they're making.
Right. And just to go back to the macro perspective I was saying is that, so it starts there, no education in like any school systems as like young people, family conditioning, societal conditioning, we can't talk about this. And then you're sending your kids out into the wild. They just think credit cards are bad. Don't do this. Student loan debt is like, the worst thing in the world, which there's so many ways to like reutilize that, like different perspectives around all these different things. And then are starting to get wealth and, they're, increasing their salary and income and don't know even how to make their money work for themselves.
Yes.
So it's like, where do you go? I mean, I just described kind of a partially of my journey with money, but that's like 80% of the people that are in my world, and half of them are making very, very good money as entrepreneurs.
Well, and that's one reason why I was really excited to have Michelle talk about herself and what she's doing today, because for me, I worked really hard for 25 years. I mean, I was, making a recruiter's salary. I had an idea And I was like, I need to change the way that recruiting is done, right? So I set out and I did it in 2019. My company exploded by 2020. And I had zero understanding of a trust, how to set my company up so that it could protect me. I worked with a CPA that basically said, here's what you do every year. This is the expenses you can do. This all very like CPA driven.
That's exactly.
And it's, you set a company up, you get a good CPA. I didn't have any lawyers. I had my business lawyer, but he wasn't saying, hey, go talk to like a tax attorney. Right. And like, until then I actually, the person who bought the company from me said, you're going to come into, some money. He goes, you really need to go talk to a tax attorney, talk to somebody who can protect you. And I did not take him seriously. Mm-hmm. And so we lost, I shouldn't say lost. We could have protected a lot of that for my generations to come. Instead, we made some mistakes, and I didn't understand the trusts. I didn't understand wills, and I didn't have the right team to protect me.
And at that point, you were like gassed because you were like, I just want to sell this. And like, yes. You've been working your ass off for so many years. My one question to get back to what we're talking about over here is, at what point in your business, because like, I really relate to that. My first business was like a small marketing agency for 4 years. And I was, kicking ass, doing really well, expanding at like a really great rate. But I never thought I was at that income bracket. I wasn't even close to talking to somebody about, I wasn't hitting my numbers enough to be even having those conversations with people.
You are. You always are. You should be having conversations. I'm going to shit all over you.
Because at the end of the year, and you see how much you've made, and then how much you have to pay in taxes.
It hurts every time. Right? It's deeply.
So anyone it hurts, you should be talking to someone to help you figure out how not to pay all that in taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there isn't like a threshold. So say you're making, I don't know, you're just starting a side hustle and you're making like, I don't know, $5K a month. Is that enough?
Or less.
I don't know. Yeah.
If you're making $500 a month, you should go talk to Michelle. Honestly.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm trying to bridge the gap here is like, what does that look like for somebody?
Don't get to where I was making $5 million a year and not having a strategy. Take your $5 and go figure it out so that when you are making $5 million, you know that you're protected and the shit's not going to get all screwed up.
You got one seed, nurture that seed, right? So as I say with people is like, start with a 10-minute walk. Like get sunlight first thing in the morning. Like that, what's that sunlight and drinking water? Like what's that first thing for you?
Just the first seed is why she's talking about a CPA. You want to know how your business is set up. So if you have a business and you don't have it set up so that you can take employee income and separate that from your business income because it's taxed differently. If you don't do that first, that's the first problem, because then after that, you can use certain monies to invest in your business.
Which taking it down to the going out to the grass and grounding yourself and getting some sunlight, that is the number one problem that most people do if they have a side hustle. It's take that $5 and put 50 cents as the employee and the other $4.50 to your business.
Right.
Say that again, please.
You have, okay.
Take your 50 cents, pay yourself as an employee, and put the other $4.50 into your business.
So you have to have the right accounts. Have your business account, have your personal account, and have it very clear how much you're paying yourself as an employee, so that you don't say the $250,000 you made that year is your salary or your
It usually
income.
Flows through on a Schedule K.
Okay, so simple math, 100K. Right, and I'm paying myself 10%. Just as a simple example.
So then you only
pay myself $10,000 a year, right? So I only pay
Social
taxes.
Security and what's the other taxes on that? You talk to an enrolled agent and they tell you all the taxes you pay on that to the government is just on that salary now. But you have your business income over here, the business money. That's taxed differently. So that's the first thing you should think about, and talk to an enrolled agent that'll explain these things.
What's an enrolled agent?
So they're a tax
I was
strategist.
waiting. I'm like, can I ask
what?
really
Tax
simple
strategist.
questions?
So like how we say we go to CPAs and they didn't really tell us these things or explain it well enough. An enrolled agent is a tax strategist that will help you figure out how to deal with your money and have an S-Corp, which is how you're taxed with a business, and then you have your employee income. So that then you use the money.
Can you help your clients find an enrolled agent?
I can help them do that.
So it's a holistic practice, right?
Yes.
So you're setting them up from beginning to end and everything in between.
Yes.
So I'm interested to hear like how you run and operate your life, business, and finances, because that's always something I admired about you. Like it just is. You have that money financial consciousness.
It's because I didn't have it. Because
That's
I learned.
exactly. I understand.
That's why we got along so well.
Right.
I'm like, I was we were in the same spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
You
that's
start to get upset about how much you're paying in taxes, and like, why do I have to pay that in taxes, and how do I figure out how not to? Why I said you have to want to figure this out so that you don't end up paying all that money, because you don't have to. That's why there's legal ways not to.
So do you think that like people have some pretty severe limiting beliefs and issues
We all do,
around their mindset with finances that
Yes.
maybe like hypnosis would be helpful for?
Right. And then the whole thing of just taxes, the whole idea of taxes, no one wants to pay them. But for some reason, we all think we have to pay them. And we don't try and figure out the legal ways not to.
Why
we don't
is
think
that?
there's even any way, and there's ways.
let's
so-
talk about that. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about, the instant gratification.
Right.
Right?
Why I
Like the
say
instant
you gotta-
gratification is like, okay, now I don't
see
have to
that-
pay as much in taxes, so I can keep more of that. And then you're like,
Yeah,
yes,
then
you can, but make sure that you're thinking long term too.
And you have to invest it, because that's
Yes.
the way the government gives you the deduction.
So what does that look like in terms of, for you, what you do with somebody? Okay, so I'm making $100K a year and I own a business. I'm doing all these things, from travel to eating out to buying equipment and investing in courses and coaches and mentors, and those are all deductibles, right? And in the meantime, I'm paying myself, but not in the way that you're talking about, which I need to, right? So set that up.
Right.
You're going to be like,
So
hey,
that's
get
the
that
first thing to do.
established. So
Yeah.
get two separate
Very
entities.
important instant
First
gratification.
Thing that's instant.
There we go. So, but so you're like, dude, do it.
Yeah. Go
It's
ahead.
like, drink your water. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So from that, now what I'm looking at it is, okay, I need direction now.
Yes.
I have a personal bank account. I have a business bank account. I do have those actually, but now I'm separating the two. I'm an employee of the business. Now let's talk long-term and tax. Like that's why I'd be interested in talking to you about.
Yeah,
What does that look like?
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can be doing to set yourself up, and not investing in SEP IRAs. It's not paying taxes on that income you put in an IRA. There's all these things, but it's so depending on the amounts of money you're having each year and how you're going to invest it. Why I say high W-2 earners can be doing all this, and they're doing it. They're investing in property.
I think there's a large group of people out there that are like, I know a lot of people who are making good money, putting money into just like a high yield savings account. Like they're just doing that.
Yeah, but
And not doing much else.
yeah,
Right? They buy a house, right? Okay, so they save up, buy a house.
Yeah.
Now their money is in the house. They're earning a good income, but now their mindset is they're preparing for taxes. Their mindset is that
Yeah,
they're
so-
investing and trying to refinance the house.
And that's why they should be thinking about how can I not pay taxes and invest in assets that are going to help me in my future.
What if, so as growing up in the educational system, most people think doing this, is this fraudulent, or you're not doing your part for society by, are you doing something wrong? Is this
think
wrong?
about it. If, let's say, I make a certain amount of money and I want to invest in property, how is that not helping the community? That's providing housing for other people. Then if you want to set aside money for charity, how is that not helping the community? You're choosing what charity you're going to give money to, and you can choose right in your neighborhood, and that helps your community.
And we have to look at the government as a company, right?
Yeah.
They have their income and their expenses, except for if I want to give to my community and my charity of choice, I should be able to do that. And I will do that in this scenario so that I don't have to pay for waste that's maybe going on in the company of the government.
And they encourage you to do that. That's why it's all in the tax code that you can do these things. But if people are not doing it, then give it to us and we'll tell you how we're going to spend it.
And I don't need to feel bad about doing that. Okay.
You should feel good that you're intelligent enough to figure out how to use the tax code legally to invest in your community and choose which charities you're going to invest and grow your business in your community. This is what you're doing. So how are you not investing?
So somebody who's financially literate connecting with Michelle, who's also financially literate, you can see in others, as you said, that you connected so well. What was something that blew you away from others that you've talked to, other professionals, that made Michelle stand out?
Michelle understands the vision of how you create and maintain generational wealth. And she's been there. She's made the mistakes. And so she knows all of the mistakes to avoid to help you so that her knowledge can be used so you don't make the same mistakes as really both her and I did.
Yeah, you recognize that because you made similar mistakes.
The exact same mistakes.
Yeah, that makes okay. So, in what you're saying to everybody is, don't make these mistakes, so do these things.
Yeah, if it makes you sick to your stomach to think, I got to pay that much in taxes, is there a way not to? No, there is a way, and there's people that are willing to explain this to you and help you do it. Mm-hmm. So you can do it legally.
So somebody who
feel good about it.
Right.
So somebody who says, okay, I make $250K a year and they are an employee, mm-hmm. and it's just like a common thing, take 50% and just put it away because I'm going to have to pay taxes. What's your advice on that?
Well, here's what I think where people need to start. If they're not comfortable with setting aside money, this is what I pay for taxes, this is what I give for donations, maybe set up that kind of system to get comfortable with that whole idea of I can't spend this money or I can't spend that amount of money. Because I know where I started, I wasn't even doing that, and why I would owe a lot of taxes and didn't have it at some point.
Can you explain that? Like the differences between those two?
So like the tax brackets, like when you start making money, there's all these tax brackets and you need to know the amount mm-hmm. at 10% is a certain amount. And then it goes all the way, if you had Obama, or let's say any president, at a certain point, it was 37% if you made up to a certain amount. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So if you're at one point making $140,000, you're paying $40,000 in taxes. If you think about it, it's like, why can't I don't know, do something else with this money and get a tax write-off? Mm-hmm. You can, but you're not thinking about it. You're not investing in your business, getting a property to run your business out of. You're not investing in anything.
Well, and there's so many other different things that you can think about with investing. I mean, we can do
IRA.
We'll do a whole session on this, but so if you want to actually be an investor in a pre-seed or seed round of a company, you have to meet certain thresholds set by the government. I think it's $200,000 individually for your income and $300,000 married. If you're making that kind of money, you should be joining the syndication groups and different things like that to pool your money together so that you can invest in different things outside of a stock market and a SEP. Those are just general like entry level things that you can be thinking about. And you keep bringing back to like the renting and buying property and things like that.
Because that's one way.
That's one way to do
Yeah,
it. But
one of
there's
many.
Yes.
many
Infinite
other
ways, really.
Yeah.
You get to pick and choose.
And as soon as you open your mind to the possibilities, they're endless.
Yeah.
So the point being is that if you have some money reserved and setting aside, and you're thinking, I'm putting it aside to pay taxes, change the perspective and go, I can use that, which I'm not saying avoid. You got to have a holding for this, that, and the other, and just in case money and all these things, right? But you're essentially looking, how do I get this money to work for me?
Yes.
That's right.
Right. And so in that regard, that's why they would come to you.
Yeah.
How do you get this money to work for me? And then how do I protect this money once it's working for me?
That's a really key
And
thing. Is like, how do you protect it and hold it?
simultaneously?
You need to, yes.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing that people are missing.
Yes.
Something I relate to in my world is somebody will come on and they'll sign up for 3 months, and it's like, I just know it's probably not going to work long term because it's just not long enough to build that security.
It takes 6 months to change a habit.
Yeah. It's
And even longer for like a full identity shift.
yes.
And then people need to understand that wealth building is a long-term game, not a quick gamble.
It's not a fad diet.
No.
Well, this is the thing. It's like what I'm really interested in is, you got to set up your environment to change,
Yes.
right? So
And
essentially, if there's any takeaway from today, it's call Michelle to get into that position to build that environment,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Whether
Big-
you're making $5,000 a year or you're making $5 million or $25 million, they should be working with somebody, Michelle or someone like her.
Because and take that for our listeners here is like the caliber of awareness here financially is like it's between you two, it really is, it says a lot to say, go to this person for this, whether you're making $5,000 a year on a side hustle or looking at building a whole entire forest of financial wealth and securing it. And it's just as important to accumulate, but it's even more important to secure it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Amazing.
I have, I wanted to go back to your intro where you got emotional.
Oh.
Because that was, I was like, oh, this is perfect.
What?
Because it says a lot about who you are
Okay.
and what you do
Yeah.
and why you do it. Like what came up during that time as it relates to finances and wealth, because it is a part of it all. That, experiencing that transition where you went from with your partner to being on your own.
Yeah.
Was there a change in your financial consciousness during that time that triggered you to go down this road?
I think it's really sad when people are building their wealth and working so hard to create what they created, their business and their practice and doing it so well, that they didn't take time to take care of themselves. It's a sad thing, I think.
Yeah.
Because you have to take care of yourself, and doing all this is a part of taking care of you and your well-being. Because it's like you invest so much in yourself and others, and you help so many people, and then at the end, you may not get it back. And part of it is you should be taking care of yourself from the beginning.
Yeah.
So then you can receive that.
And when you're saying that, what do you mean by taking care of yourself?
And that's what estate planning is. It's taking care of yourself, because it's not just the trust and the assets in there. You're saying, this is going to take care of me. I'm going to make sure I get to live in my house until I pass. I'm going to say all my money I accumulated over time is going to take care of me, because it's in the trust, it's in the contract. And then all these powers of attorney when you age and you can't or don't want to go to the bank or handle medical things, you have people you trust handling them for you, because we're all going to age, and sometimes we're not going to age very well.
And I think going back to one of your other key points was who do you trust to take care of you?
Right. So then to build those relationships over your lifetime, picking who you're going to be around so that you have people you trust around you also helps your well-being.
That's right.
So to be more picky will be helpful. And to be thinking about all these things would make your life a little better.
That's a key point. No matter what you're doing,
Discernment.
you have to. We don't take enough time for ourselves because the one person who will always look out for you is you, right? And so when you're thinking about, your health, it's also your mental health and your mindset, I guess, right? And how do you build that into a trust so that you're showing up while you can as the best person that you can show up as? Because you're pouring your life into your work, most of us, right? And a lot of us put our kids into daycare and go into this job or into this business that we've created, and you're missing out on a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you set it up so that when you are present with your family or your friends or the people you love, that you're healthy?
Yeah, I guess that's what we all have to think about, and why I started thinking about it, because most people are not.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up getting illnesses and then passing without having figured it out. So it's like we have to figure it out when we can and when we have the
energy
of changing things, not later.
And it's like saying that it's like that's the purpose of kind of why we're all bringing our perspectives together, is like building a foundation where, the trust and financial, strategies and aspect of your life it happens now. Mm-hmm. The, fitness and nutrition and those habits have to happen now. Mindset, the subconscious reprogramming, all of those things have to happen now as a synergy in order for you to create a life that you're not missing out so much on those moments with your family, or you're able to be pursuing an interest in your career or profession that you actually really love, that feels maybe purpose-driven or mission-driven. But it's like they all need to be done at the same time and like in a compatible way.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example from my own personal life. I poured my life and my soul into my company, didn't leave my desk 90 hours a week. I knew that I was not healthy. I knew I wasn't eating right. I knew I wasn't. I did make working out a priority, but it was almost like a chore. It wasn't like a exciting thing to do. Yeah. And for me, my trajectory, I'm in the perfect place that I should be, so I don't have any regrets. The trajectory of my business and my life would have been different if I took a step back, took care of my mindset, my health, and made me a priority instead of putting everything else first. And I am blessed that I'm here able to share this information with other people, and it didn't kill me, but it damn near killed me.
So with that, we all got a lot of things filling up the plate day by day, week by week, right? So setting aside time, focus to be able to build this, part of that is an easy way to do it is really just contact Michelle, a professional who knows what they do, lives, eat, and breathes this. Doesn't do it as a side gig. This is what she's about. And that allows you to set time aside, right? Because that accountability is what people hire for a service. Right. If you're a coach, consultant, or any type of within that realm, you're not in the business of whatever business you're in. You're in the business of accountability. You are holding them accountable to what they need to do.
And then they could just pay me to do the hard work and have their free time to do what they need to do for themselves.
So it's you're the general contractor for finances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And overall well-being, because she's going to push you to think about, should you partner with Justin for some of your health issues, full functional health? Should you partner with Christina for some breath work and hypnosis? Should you come to the other Christina for some business advice and hypnosis time? What are you looking for? Let's plan it out and take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's just so interesting hearing everybody's different perspective, because the through line for me is that the bigger picture, again, is that we're kind of taught to put ourselves last and at such a young age, and that sacrifice and like this ridiculous work ethic is like so celebrated and rewarded, when in reality, like no one wins when that's like the program. And so switching your mindset with all of these conversations to going back to, that's why we need to remember you, is like understanding that what you're pouring into and investing in within yourself is not only going to feel good, but it's going to ripple out into every single person that you care about, even the people you come across. I mean, we're sitting here having these conversations and some random guy walks up and it's
Juan,
like, whoa.
our buddy Juan.
Oh yeah, Juan, sorry. It was just like, what are you guys talking about? This is amazing. And starts sharing his dreams and like conversation. It's like, that's how it works, I think.
It is how it works. Nice.
That's cool.
Oh yeah. Wait, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
My
all
rapid
means.
fire.
Let's do your rapid fire.
All right, sister. These are probably pretty basic, but I just wanted to wrap up with some questions about estate planning trends.
Okay.
So we'll start with the biggest. Let's start with digital estate planning. Do people view this as legitimate or risky? And what is your opinion?
So you mean like do-it-yourself estate planning, or people just go
Online
online?
wills, digital wallets.
Yeah, those are just basic ways
To get started.
Yeah, and why you meet with an attorney to tell them your assets and what you're trying to do and who your beneficiaries are and who can be a trustee is why you need to meet with an attorney. Because we're trained to think about all the facts of your particular situation, because not everyone has the same situation.
It's like each client's a puzzle.
Yeah, and then everyone's net worth is different. And what you can do with that net worth is different in terms of trust and stuff like that. So.
Okay. So as far as kind of like you brought this up a little bit, but how are people handling crypto and digital assets and estate plans as this like world kind of explodes?
Well, they're making it part of a trust. So
Is it keeping up like, or all like, is it being included as it becomes more and more focused?
yeah. So, and it has to be, and people have to keep track of all their assets. Otherwise, it's just going to be lost like it's been lost for a very long time. That's why we have the Department of Unclaimed Property, life insurance policies, bank accounts, all of that's in there.
Interesting. Okay. Based on this conversation, would you say are more people setting up trusts earlier in life, or is this still something nobody's talking about?
It's still something, I think it's more talked about now because of social media, but it's still something I think people are thinking is for the wealthy. And that's why I want to talk about it more so that they don't think that's what it is. And if they really want to avoid probate court, they should seriously consider a trust.
Is there a growing trend of people gifting assets while alive?
Yeah, well, people with substantial wealth have the ability to gift $15,000, or I think it's $19,000 a year. I forget. There's certain amounts every year. It changes all the time, so they can be doing that.
And that is like benefit to their
to their beneficiaries and to themselves. They don't have to pay taxes on that.
Exactly.
So there's all these different tricks depending on your net worth that you can be doing.
Okay. How has COVID changed the way that people think about estate planning? Have you noticed a major shift or not really?
Yeah, not really. I think people really don't think anything's gonna happen to them, and then they don't really think to do anything about it until they pass. And that's why I think it's important to talk about this and how it can benefit them right now if they're thinking ahead. It's harder to make it benefit you when you're already going to pass away.
Right. Okay. Younger generations, have you noticed a trend if they're more proactive or still avoiding it? Like me and Justin.
Still avoiding it.
What are you talking about? I don't know.
I'm not. I'm here. I'm showing up. I'm
Yeah,
like,
this is-
I'm
this- no,
literally
this is-
taking like
yeah.
pages of notes.
More
This whole
talked about, you
conversation.
have more knowledge
Yeah.
than you would have had a few years ago. So.
But I'm just saying though, like, I mean, from like a pure statistical perspective, are your clients, what are the age brackets?
Yeah, they're like older.
Okay, so like that's what I'm
So
saying is
why
like,
it's so important for them to know. Like Christina and I are not that old.
yeah, no,
I don't
totally.
think we're that old.
I'm
and
I'm
thinking
still
about
in
it.
my early 40s, I guess I could say.
Okay, early 40s. See, I'm 47. So it's like late 40s, but I should have been thinking about it earlier on.
Yeah.
I'm so
like
And since we're telling ages, I just turned 45 like a week ago, so I'm
Happy
I'm,
birthday.
I'm on
That
the
for me.
I'm
Happy
on
birthday.
the
We got another Aries in the house.
so Aries,
Yes.
Aries.
Oh my God, three
Yeah.
Aries, no wonder.
That track.
What are
I'm a
you?
Taurus.
Yeah.
Oh, that
That's
track.
why.
She's like, someone has
Jesus
to
Christ.
manage.
I'm a
different.
cusp, so I do have a little bit of the Pisces in me. So there's the
When's your
emotional
birthday?
side. 21st.
Mine's March 26th.
That's awesome.
When's your birthday?
April 19th.
Okay. And?
So you're on the cusp then,
So-
on the other end.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
So, wait. Your birthday just was this
Yeah,
week.
it
Oh,
was
my
Sunday.
God.
That's awesome.
We missed her birthday. It was this week.
Come on.
Oh, my
Happy
God.
Happy birthday to you.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
I love birthdays, so you should.
This is very interesting though, that it's like we're all in kind of the same sphere as you bring that around. From the cusp to a full blown Taurus.
Yeah.
That tracks. I gotta say, I love astrology. I always jokingly tell people it's like my reality TV.
Yeah.
Like if I had to, I don't take it too serious, but it's good.
To all those that like, I got friends who are very rational and like want to put it in as we're going into all this with the astrology and whatnot. Like when the way I track it rationally is like space and time we can all agree upon is a way that we ground ourselves in this reality, right? So you're here at this time, at this moment.
We're lucky to have this 3D body. Yep.
Right? So we're here in Bolingbrook, here doing the podcast at XYZ time. When you're born, there's a whole sequence of vibration, frequency of light. Just like, all right, so 6 a.m. in the morning, the light comes up. The sun looks different, right? Looks different at noon, looks different at 6 p.m., right? That's all different perspectives of the same light. And so when you're born during that time, it instills or solidifies that point in time, so you carry that energy, right?
Gene
Christine.
I was like, this is gonna be.
Can we just talk about Gene
Well, I was gonna say this might be
and human design?
this might be a good wrap up for our next conversation because we've been wanting to talk about patterns and like these different things.
Okay.
But this is kind of taking a hard left turn from our conversation here. So let me
I
finish.
think it all
that's
applies.
fine.
I think it all
I
applies.
think it's all connected.
I do have
It's all
something
connected.
after your
I just
rapid
want to
fire.
let's wrap up these couple quick
fine.
ones, and then we'll transition out because I do think that's a good lead up to our next episode.
Okay.
Okay. So, and these are fast, so you don't have to go too deep on them.
Okay.
Biggest mistake you see with the DIY estate planning tools?
Not understanding that the attorney is there for a reason. They know more about all these. I had the tax code book. It's like this thick. You know, knowing all this knowledge and how to apply it to your facts is what's so important about an attorney. Going to a do-it-yourself plan doesn't mean it's going to work because there's all these rules for every state of what it should have, how it should be written, and a judge can say it's not done right. You
So,
can't
like
use it.
one small thing could be done incorrectly that would
Yes.
like lead to like a
Yes.
ripple effect.
Yes.
Okay, so just please don't do that. Everyone, call Michelle. Okay, are people getting more creative with their legacy planning as you kind of expand your business? Do you notice that?
Yeah. I notice a lot of business owners getting very serious. A lot of people investing in property are getting very serious because there have been businesses that have just gone away because they didn't do it. But I think people that are investing in properties, they're more serious about like going to see an estate planning attorney. And even then they're confused, but they want to do something to protect their family and pass down their assets.
That's awesome. This kind of as it goes off the question that you were saying about blending finances. Are like blended families making estate plans more complex?
Yeah, and they're the ones that need it the most.
Yes, they are.
Interesting.
So they need it the most, but that's why you do a trust, because a lot of people thought they had a trust done correctly, and because they had blended families and they still end up in probate court. So that's what's so important too about talking to an attorney that's going to know how to draft it correctly to keep you out of court.
Yeah, my family just went through this and it was like the biggest nightmare situation for like 2 years. So it's super interesting to be on the other end of it with this conversation. Is there more focus now on healthcare directives and living wills?
Yeah, I think people don't understand why they need them, but I have to explain it to them. So, yeah, they still need to be explained.
It goes back to your original, like what you were talking about with, do you want your mom to take care of you
Right.
and not meet your, maybe you're super into functional health, but your best friend could take care of you, has the means
Yes.
and knows that you love functional health.
Right.
They're going to be taking you to an acupuncturist or whatever.
Right.
And having that documented is so important. And you don't even think, you will never know that.
Because you have to think of this
is
when
why.
it ends up in probate court, a judge is going to automatically think mother, sister, and you may not even talk to them.
Yeah, what if they're estranged?
Yeah, they don't even are not in keeping with how you'd like to be taken care of and maybe rehabilitated. So it's important to think about.
Amazing. Okay. Last couple are a little future oriented. So what do you think, or how will AI be changing how we create wills and trusts? Do you think it's going to?
I think having an estate planning attorney makes it more personal. And why people hire me is because they want their family to be able to go to someone that can help them. Like if they do pass and something happens, they need someone to talk to, and these are the steps that we can take to make sure everything goes smoothly for the family that's grieving now. AI is not going to be able to do that. Fine, you could ask them to draft a document, but AI is not that perfect in knowing everything and applying everything you would need to do for your particular document. An attorney can know, I'll take this out, I'll put this in, and the person that's doing AI doesn't know enough to know that AI
They can't create like thorough enough prompting to like even know what they don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's so much involved.
Which is
in
like
how
with
you can
anything, right?
draft it. There's just so much.
Okay, last 2 questions. Could blockchain replace traditional estate documents?
I don't see how that can happen.
I'm just curious,
No, I
like the
don't think
future
so.
where everything's going.
No.
Okay.
Never say never, but right now, no.
Okay.
Couple things that I'd like to ask. Are we doing okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So, lost my train of thought here. Give me a
Blockchain,
moment.
AI.
Yeah. The AI prompting. So this is a big thing. I know you use it a lot.
Yeah.
I know everybody here is using AI. And like
to.
just bringing it in even deeper, like the expertise that you have utilizing AI, it can draft up something.
Yeah.
People kind of take it for granted to say this is the
Yeah, it looks
contract.
good.
But you know all the you know how to look at it from 20 different angles, whereas
Right.
somebody may only look at the document from 1 or 2 angles.
Right. It may not cover everything you need covered, even in the drafting by an attorney. You have to go and get draft something that's not standard and put it in there because your client is different than another standard document that you would see.
A good example of this that I think everybody can relate to is if you're creating a company and you want to create the company and you have the idea and you put the prompts into AI, you have this great idea, right? AI can generally get you an LLC operating agreement or whatever.
But even then, it doesn't cover everything.
And you
I've
don't,
seen that.
yes. And you have to still have your own unique vision in there. And that is for you and the professional that you hire to be your partner to figure out and navigate.
Yeah, and the drafting of these types of documents is very critical, the wording, because you can put in something that a judge is just going to say that's not what this is. Because you put this sentence in there, now it makes it not an irrevocable trust, or it makes it not a trust.
Good point.
You know, all these things. And it's like, why do you want that problem? Why do you, I mean, if you think about in the larger scheme of how much you would pay in probate court in comparison to hiring an estate planning attorney is very small. So how much money are you willing to lose just because you didn't pay that minimal fee up front just to get the trust done?
Yeah, I think the big thing is people going into this thinking they know it all without thinking that they know it all, but like just kind of going into it like you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And do you have somebody who's an expert in every important aspect of your life, I think is really a key to success.
Yeah. So you don't have to go and learn everything yourself.
Well, I think that's like every super successful person, like you get a baseline understanding so you can at least, again, like the financial language, it's like just understanding the basics, but then get to a point where you know you need to outsource, like someone who's the expert. It's like you're creating a board of directors for your life.
That's exactly right.
And-
That's the way I see a trustee. The trustees acting as the board of directors for your life.
Totally.
And that's what, even just being an estate planning attorney, you need the enrolled agent, the financial advisor. You need all these other professionals to help with this person's estate to just make it flow to the next generation nicely.
I love it. I'm done with mine.
I just want to reiterate, like, success leaves clues, right? Like seeking help and reaching out for advice and direction, I think, is the shortcut to success. And to the point of trust, it's important where you get that information from, and that you trust that information from, or that person, most importantly, to get that information. So.
Yeah, I'll ask you one final question. There's a lot of stuff on social media, TikTok, Instagram right now that are talking about like all these people who can break the code of, financial wealth and all this stuff. And, your advice to them?
My advice to them, even with listening to me, this should be informational purposes only. I'm not your attorney. I don't know your situation. So don't take what I'm saying as it's applying to you, just like everyone else on the internet, especially some people, I don't think they're even attorneys talking about this. You should not believe what they're saying because they can take the tax code and interpret it incorrectly. So why you should meet with your own attorney, hire them, make sure you trust them and believe that they know what they're talking about. Maybe meet with 3, I don't know. And then pick one and then go from there.
I love it. Do your research, have some discernment, and do what's right for you.
Right.
Love it. Did you have any other questions?
Plenty, but another time.
We're like, we need to let Michelle go take a walk, touch some grass.
Thank you so much.
Big conversation. Thank you so much. And then let's wrap up too with, so you mentioned your offering of like having this blueprint. Is that like what people can get in their initial conversation with you? What's the best way for people to reach out to
They
you?
can email me. So I would say michelle@lifewillsandtrusts.com. Email me, ask me for it. I'll send it out to them. And so they get it.
Is that a free resource or something that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just give it to them and they can just see what I'm thinking about in terms of having assets, what they can be thinking about if they don't feel like they're ready to do an estate plan. Maybe they need to take a look at that and see maybe they are, and then meet with me.
Okay, cool. And then what's your website again?
Very first step.
heritagewealthsolutions.net.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, that's all I got.
Thank you for joining our podcast. Come home, welcome home, and remember you.